Hello and welcome to Whisper Diaries. I'm your host, Natalie, and tonight we're continuing our journey through life's most awkward moments with more relationship mishaps that I hope will both amuse you and help you relax. If you're new here, this is a space where I share whispered stories of life's most relatable moments, the kind that make us cringe in the moment but laugh about later. So get comfortable, perhaps dim your lights, and let me share some tales of dating disasters that remind us we're all beautifully human. Our first story tonight is called The Virtual Reality Date Gone Wrong. As technology continues to evolve, so do our dating methods. My friend Cameron had been chatting with Riley through a dating app for about 3 weeks. They lived in different cities, about 2 hours apart, and their work schedules made it difficult to meet in person right away. When Riley suggested they try a virtual reality date in one of the popular dating worlds, Cameron thought it was the perfect solution. Less commitment than driving 2 hours, but more immersive than a video call. Cameron had limited experience with VR, but owned a decent headset, primarily used for gaming. The evening of their date, Cameron spent an hour creating what they hoped was an attractive avatar, not too idealized, but certainly putting their best virtual foot forward. The dating platform allowed users to select a variety of environments, and they had agreed on a virtual beachside cafe at sunset. Romantic, but casual enough for a first date. Cameron logged in 10 minutes early, nervous but excited. Riley's avatar appeared precisely on time, and Cameron was immediately impressed by how closely it resembled Riley's profile pictures, right down to the characteristic blue streak in their hair. "Hey there," Riley's voice came through clearly. "Nice to finally meet you, sort of." They laughed, and Cameron felt the first date butterflies even in this digital space. The conversation started wonderfully. They ordered virtual coffees from an AI waiter and began discussing their jobs, interests, and favorite books, all topics they touched on in their text conversations, but could now explore more deeply. About 20 minutes into their date, Cameron decided to use some of the platform's interactive features to impress Riley. Users could perform certain actions to create atmosphere, like conjuring a virtual rose or initiating a sunset color change. Cameron had practiced a few of these moves before the date, but was still relatively new to the gestures required. Intending to slightly dim the virtual lights for a more intimate atmosphere, Cameron made what they thought was the correct hand motion. Instead of dimming the lights, however, Cameron accidentally activated the environment change feature. The peaceful beach cafe disappeared instantly, replaced by what the platform called extreme adventure setting, essentially placing their avatars on a tiny raft in the middle of turbulent virtual rapids. "What's happening?" Riley's voice rose in confusion as their table, drinks, and the entire cafe vanished, replaced by rushing water and the sound of rapids. "I'm so sorry." Cameron tried to fix it while their avatars bobbed precariously on the digital raft. "I was trying to adjust the lighting." In a panic, Cameron attempted another gesture to return them to the cafe, but instead activated the weather effects, adding a torrential rainstorm to their already chaotic river adventure. Riley's avatar was now clutching the sides of the shusy raft while being virtually soaked. Cameron, in increasingly flustered, tried one more desperate gesture combination, which unfortunately triggered the wildlife encounter feature. A massive virtual grizzly bear appeared on the riverbank, roaring at their passing raft. "Are you doing this on purpose?" Riley asked, their voice a mixture of confusion and amusement. "No, I swear I'm just trying to get us back to the cafe." Cameron was frantically trying to remember the reset command when they accidentally hit the raft's capsize trigger. Both avatars were suddenly plunged into the virtual water, the bear roaring from the shore, thunder crashing overhead. The date that had started with sophisticated conversation over coffee had descended into a chaotic wilderness survival scenario in less than 30 seconds. To Riley's credit, after the initial shock, they started laughing. "This is definitely the most adventurous first date I've ever had," they said as their avatar struggled against the virtual current. Eventually, Cameron found the master reset button, and they returned to the cafe, their avatars now dripping wet with digital water. Cameron was mortified, certain the date was ruined, but Riley found the whole thing hilarious. "I was worried this might be boring," Riley admitted. "This was definitely not boring." They ended up spending another hour together, with Cameron wisely avoiding any further gesture controls. The virtual disaster actually broke the ice more effectively than any planned conversation could have. 2 weeks later, they met in person for the first time. Riley brought a small toy raft as a gift, and they've been dating for 6 months now. Sometimes, Cameron reflects, our worst technological failures create our most memorable human connections. Our next story is the Instagram algorithm betrayal. This tale comes from my college friend Jordan, who had recently gone through a difficult breakup with their partner of 2 years, Taylor. As many people do after a breakup, Jordan had taken to healing by documenting their glow-up on social media, posting about new hobbies, nights out with friends, and generally creating the impression of someone thriving in their newly single status. It wasn't entirely genuine. Jordan was still hurting, but the supportive comments and likes provided a much-needed confidence boost. About a month after the breakup, Jordan decided it was time to dip a toe back into the dating pool. They matched with someone named Morgan on a dating app, and after a week of messaging, they planned to meet for coffee. The date went surprisingly well. Morgan was charming, attentive, and shared many of Jordan's interests. For the first time since the breakup, Jordan felt a genuine connection with someone new. They ended the coffee date with plans for dinner the following weekend. Feeling optimistic, Jordan did what many would do, some light social media reconnaissance. They found Morgan's Instagram account and began scrolling through their photos. The algorithm, however, had a cruel surprise waiting. As Jordan scrolled through Morgan's profile, Instagram's suggested posts feature began populating their feed with photos from their ex, Taylor. Suddenly, between Morgan's hiking pictures and food posts, appeared a recent photo of Taylor looking happy with someone new, a person Jordan had never seen before. The algorithm had apparently made connections based on Jordan's browsing patterns, mutual friends, or geographic location, and chose this precise moment of new possibility to remind Jordan of their recent past. What made it worse was the dating app notification that pinged at that exact moment. A sweet message from Morgan saying how much they'd enjoyed their coffee date and were looking forward to dinner. Jordan found themselves in an emotional spiral, simultaneously trying to respond appropriately to Morgan's message while processing the unexpected images of their ex moving on. Jordan decided to be honest with Morgan and asked to reschedule their dinner, explaining that they'd suddenly realized they might not be as ready to date as they thought. Morgan was understanding, but the momentum of their connection was lost. 2 weeks later, when Jordan felt more emotionally stable and reached out again, Morgan had begun seeing someone else. Jordan learned an important lesson about the perils of social media after breakups, and now makes a point of using the not interested feature aggressively when algorithms try to dredge up the past at inopportune moments. The dating world is complicated enough without algorithms playing emotional matchmaker with our past and present. I hope you're enjoying these whispered stories of dating mishaps. If you're finding them both entertaining and relaxing, I would be so grateful if you could like this episode and perhaps leave a comment with your thoughts. I'd love to hear about your own relationship mishaps or any topics you'd like me to explore in future episodes of Whisper Diaries. Your support through engagement helps this podcast grow and allows me to continue creating content that resonates with you. Now, let's continue with our next relationship disaster story. Our third story is the language of love. Lost in translation. My friend Jamie had matched with Claude on a dating app. Claude's profile mentioned they had recently moved from France, and Jamie, who had studied French in college, but rarely had opportunities to practice, was excited about the potential language connection. Their first few messages were delightful, with Claude occasionally using French phrases that Jamie mostly understood. Emboldened by this initial success, Jamie decided to really impress Claude on their first date by demonstrating more extensive French language skills. The issue was that Jamie's French was rustier than they remembered. Rather than admit this, however, Jamie spent the 3 days before their date intensively refreshing with language apps and YouTube tutorials, learning specific phrases they thought might be useful for their dinner at a cozy Italian restaurant. The evening of the date arrived, and Jamie was nervous but excited. Claude arrived looking even more attractive than their profile photos, greeting Jamie with the customary French double-cheek kiss, which immediately flustered Jamie in the best possible way. After they were seated, Jamie decided to launch into their prepared French right away. Je suis très excitée de vous rencontrer ce soir, Jamie said, carefully pronouncing each word. Claude looked momentarily confused, but smiled. Your French is unexpected, they replied in perfect English. Encouraged, Jamie continued, using another practiced phrase. J'espère que nous pourrons apprendre à mieux nous connaître. Claude's smile tightened slightly. Perhaps we could speak English. It might be easier. But Jamie, assuming Claude was just being polite, decided to showcase the dinner-specific phrases they had practiced. Pointing to the menu, Jamie confidently stated what they thought meant. I would recommend the pasta with seafood. Claude's eyes widened, and they suddenly looked extremely uncomfortable. I don't think you meant to say that, Claude said quietly. What did I say? Jamie asked, suddenly worried. You just told me that you... How do I put this delicately? You suggested that I would taste good with seafood, Claude explained, a blush spreading across their face. Mortified, Jamie immediately reverted to English, apologizing profusely. Claude was gracious about it and explained that Jamie's French had a few significant pronunciation issues that had completely changed the meaning of certain phrases. What followed was an honest conversation about Jamie's actual level of French, barely conversational, and Claude's experience with people fetishizing their French background, apparently very common in the dating scene. The honesty broke the ice in a way Jamie's attempted linguistic showmanship never could have. They ended up laughing about the misunderstanding, and Claude even offered to help Jamie with authentic French phrases for future reference, though they suggested starting with less romantic content until Jamie's pronunciation improved. They've been dating for 4 months now, and Jamie is slowly improving their French, though Claude still teases them about the seafood comment whenever they eat at an Italian restaurant. Our final story tonight is the double-booked disaster. My colleague Alex had been using multiple dating apps simultaneously, a common strategy in today's digital dating landscape. The challenge with this approach, as Alex would soon discover, is that it requires careful attention to scheduling. One Tuesday evening, Alex matched with Jordan on one app and Morgan on another. Both conversations progressed quickly and pleasantly, and by Thursday, Alex had arranged first dates with both of them. Jordan for 7 p.m. Saturday at a popular downtown restaurant called Bistro Verde, and Morgan for 8 p.m. the same night at a wine bar called Verde Wine and Spirits. If you're already seeing the potential problem, you're one step ahead of Alex, who didn't notice the similarity in venue names or the tight timing when making these arrangements. Saturday arrived, and Alex spent the afternoon getting ready, feeling optimistic about both dates, but particularly excited about meeting Jordan, with whom they'd had especially engaging conversations. Alex arrived at Bistro Verde at 6:55 p.m., was seated at a table for two, and texted Jordan to let them know they had arrived. Jordan replied that they were just parking and would be there in 5 minutes. The date with Jordan started wonderfully. They had immediate chemistry, laughing easily, and finding they had even more in common than their app conversations had revealed. They ordered appetizers and were deeply engaged in conversation when Alex's phone buzzed with a text. It was Morgan, just arrived at Verde. Don't see you inside. Are you on the patio? Alex felt a wave of panic. In their excitement over connecting with Jordan, they had completely forgotten about the date with Morgan. Worse, they now realized that Bistro Verde and Verde Wine and Spirits were not, as they had somehow assumed when making these plans, the same place. They were, in fact, establishments located on opposite ends of downtown, about a 15-minute drive apart. Alex excused themselves to the restroom to figure out what to do. Canceling on Morgan last minute seemed cruel, but Alex was genuinely enjoying their time with Jordan and didn't want to cut it short. In a momentary lapse of judgment, Alex decided to try to make both dates work. They texted Morgan claiming they were running about 20 minutes late due to unexpected traffic, but were on their way. Returning to the table with Jordan, Alex tried to stay present while now watching the clock. After another 15 minutes, they made an excuse about a minor work emergency that they needed to address with a quick phone call outside. Once outside, Alex called a rideshare and hurriedly explained to the driver that they needed to get to Verde Wine and Spirits as quickly as possible. then returned to Bistro Verde within 30 minutes. The confused driver did his best, and Alex arrived at the wine bar around 8:35 p.m., apologizing profusely to Morgan for the delay. Morgan was gracious about it, and they quickly ordered drinks and began chatting. Alex was distracted but tried to focus on Morgan, all while watching the time and crafting an excuse for their imminent departure. After exactly 25 minutes, Alex claimed they weren't feeling well and might need to cut the evening short. Morgan looked concerned and offered to drive Alex home. Trapped by their own deception, Alex had to decline awkwardly, insisting they preferred to use a rideshare. Looking somewhat confused and disappointed, Morgan wished Alex well, and they parted ways. The rideshare returned Alex to Bistro Verde, where they found an empty table and a bill. Jordan had waited for 40 minutes before giving up and leaving. Alex had 3 missed calls, 2 voicemails, and a final text from Jordan that read simply, "I saw you getting into a rideshare. If you weren't interested, you could have just said so instead of making up a work emergency. Good luck out there in trying to avoid disappointing either date." Alex had managed to ruin both opportunities. Morgan later texted to check if Alex was feeling better, but the conversation fizzled when Alex couldn't keep their story straight about their supposed illness. The experience taught Alex a valuable lesson about dating with integrity and the importance of calendar management. They now use a color-coded system for dating app conversations and have a strict 1 date per night policy. As I bring this episode to a close, I hope these whispered tales of dating mishaps have brought you both amusement and relaxation. These stories remind us that in the complicated world of modern dating, we're all just doing our best, making mistakes and hopefully learning from them along the way. The VR disasters, algorithm betrayals, language mix-ups, and scheduling catastrophes are part of what makes our search for connection so fundamentally human. Before we part ways for tonight, I want to thank you for spending this time with me. If you've enjoyed these whispered tales of relationship disasters, please consider liking this episode and leaving a comment sharing your thoughts. I'd love to hear about your own dating mishaps or any topics you'd like me to explore in future episodes of Whisper Diaries. Your engagement truly helps this podcast grow and allows me to continue creating content you enjoy. In our next episode, we'll explore new territories with fresh stories to both amuse and soothe you. Perhaps you have suggestions, a particular life experience you'd like to hear whispered about. I'm always open to your ideas and appreciate your input in shaping future content. Remember that even our most embarrassing dating moments make us who we are, teaching us valuable lessons about connection, communication, and ourselves. Thank you for listening to Whisper Diaries. This is Natalie, wishing you peaceful dreams filled with quiet laughter, and I look forward to sharing more stories with you very soon.